Chapter 87. The boy with messy hair, skinny body, mouth with glue was holding a baseball bat, anxiously wanted to rush out the door. However, before leaving, he stopped. Belch hesitated in the room for a few seconds. He thought about his kidnapper was still in town, that man had a gun, his body was also very muscular. If he just rushed out like that, he would be like a human moving target. Even if he held this baseball bat, he wouldn't be able to beat him. After thinking for a few seconds, Belch cautiously backed away from the door. He wasn't retarded. Belch thought smugly, at the same time praising his own sensitivity and ability to react. He even thought about how he would naturally and unobtrusively show off his actions to his sister after meeting Siddle. He was a poor retarded child, ridiculed and bullied at school, and didn't know how to fight back or complain. At first, I hated him very much, because my younger brother was mentally handicapped, so I also had to endure a lot of ridicule. The two black holes on the wax mask man's face seemed to be blinking. The girl continued to speak. He liked me very much and always followed me. My parents didn't like him either, and even abandoned him, but every time he secretly came back, every time he came home, his body was dirty and smelly, and he came to me first, but those things made me hate him even more. I hated him, so I ordered him not to talk to me at school, not to let others know about our relationship, until that day. I accidentally returned to the classroom. The boy was holding a box in his hand, surrounded by some bad kids who were kicking/beating him. I ignored him, pretending not to know him, and walked past him. After returning home, his face was still covered in blood, his mouth was torn, but he still foolishly ran to smile at me, giving me the box he was holding tightly in his arms. I opened it to see, inside was a doll that I had liked for a long time, because it was too expensive. My parents didn't buy it for me, but he had saved up his food money for more than half a year to buy it for me, wanting to please his sister. These words were of course false, even though Siddle and Belch's family circumstances could not afford to buy a doll. But Siddle seemed to put herself in that situation, and after talking for a while, even she herself began to feel moved. Her eyes were full of affection, sparkling like water. At that time, I looked at my little brother who was kicked/beaten all over, covered in wounds, still smiling foolishly at me, and I understood one thing. He didn't understand anything. He was a carefree retarded child, but even fools have love. He loved me. So after that, the girl smiled with relief. I kicked/beat up those who bullied him, and then let him stay by my side, not hating his condition. No one in school dared to bully him anymore. Under my gentle and tireless teaching, he learned to dress himself, eat, stopped stuttering, and took the initiative to study. And I worked hard to earn money, finally saved up some money, and sent him to a big city for rehabilitation. Now he is no longer a mentally handicapped child. With my tireless efforts and dedication day and night, I finally cured my younger brother's congenital mental retardation. At least now he is a normal person in the eyes of others and we live a happy life together. Belch was threatened by the kidnapper and did not know when he would return. He was afraid and held a baseball bat and walked around the house to check. He quietly walked around and found an underground passage, looked inside but did not dare to enter. Only he did not know when his kidnapper would return. Belch hesitated and turned around on the spot, scratching his head, and suddenly discovered that the room's circuit control switch was installed on the speckled wall in the corner of the room. He thought for a moment, gritted his teeth, made a decision, raised the baseball bat, and swung it at the switch. Bang, bang, bang. Under Belch's powerful strikes, the switch was quickly destroyed, and with a sizzling sound, the room suddenly fell into darkness. Belch touched the scissors tucked in his body, found a hiding place, and crawled in. If he couldn't directly beat/defeat him, then, he could just hide. As long as that man came back and passed by, then he would be able to. The place Belch chose to hide was very narrow, but the good thing was that there was still a place to hide. If one blow couldn't make the kidnapper lose his fighting ability, then he could still sneak into the underground passage behind. Before hiding, Belch didn't forget to look over the tool table in the room. Since he didn't see anything he liked, he could only take the baseball bat and bow and arrow that the kidnapper had thrown aside. After finishing everything, Belch moved in the dark and silent room. He hid in that hidden corner, gently holding his breath, silently waiting for the kidnapper back. At this moment, he couldn't help but think of Siddle. Did something happen to his sister? Or did she forget about him? Otherwise, why hasn't she found him yet? Whether congenital intellectual disabilities can be completely cured is still a question, but the murderer in front of him also hasn't been to school for many days, hasn't had contact with the outside world, and doesn't look like an educated person. It's just that when Siddle made up this story, she felt very smooth. After she told the wax-masked man about her touching sisterly love, she spoke for a while until she herself was about to believe it. But her purpose was not to tell him a story to influence the masked man through it. So, Siddle looked at the burly man in front of her gently, raising the key in her right hand and shaking it back and forth. If you truly love someone, you will hope that person will be happy forever, instead of living in a dark basement just to devote themselves to some illusory art. Your mother never thought that you guys were not as important as art. Her last wish was also not what Brother Vincent told you. The TV behind the man turned on quietly, static stripes swaying on the black and white screen, but the haggard woman's smile was still as calm and gentle as ever. Wait until after I die, my work will be buried with my body. I hope all of you can become people with kind hearts, and then you will be happy. The man wearing the wax mask stiffly turned to look at his mother on the old TV. Siddle observed coldly. According to the information she got from the diary, Trudy had personally educated the deformed younger brother, not seeing him have any violent tendencies or perverted mentality. On the contrary, there weren't too many details about the older brother. From that, it could be inferred that the pervert was the older brother, and the younger brother, under the guidance of his mother, didn't hate this world too much. The pain caused by outsiders was also healed by the gentle maternal love, but before he grew up, his mother suddenly fell ill and passed away. His mother left him her last words, but these last words were changed by the selfishness of her perverted older brother. What the mother hoped for was for her child to have a happy future. However, the older brother told his deformed younger brother, who was hated by the whole world and had only their mother's love, "Mother's last wish is to complete a great work of art that has never been done before. She needs our help, we must inherit her legacy." Vincent said so the younger brother stayed by his side. Day after day, the two of them relentlessly massacred the townspeople and passers-by, just to complete that perverted work of art. Let's turn this small town into a place surrounded by wax statues made of corpses. This was the work of art that the older brother secretly carved and created, and at the same time, it also cost the younger brother's life. Siddle quietly walked up behind the wax-masked man, but he didn't seem to react and just stared blankly at the woman on TV. Actually, Siddle handed him a brass key. "Perhaps Trudy left you something."